G'day listeners, welcome to Bar Karate, the sailing podcast. My name's Jordan Spencer and it's that time of the week where we get to hang out with some really cool sailors. Unfortunately, I have to share the time with my two idiot mates. So first off, let's welcome Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, Exalted One.
EP.
Good evening, how are you?
All right, mate, how are you?
Oh, well, I'm pretty stoked other than the fact we've just been smashed back down into lockdown here in Sydney.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. As of yesterday, 4 o'clock, we were trying. We'd gone so long without any cases, and then bang whammo, here we are. So 2 weeks of fun with my wife and two kids.
And some of your mongrel state members have popped across the border and shared it around up here. So I think we're about to get a bit nervous. But you guys are looking, it's pretty scary.
Well,
relative
what it is.
speaking for Australia compared to the rest of the world, but 30 cases, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's at I think it's at about 100 at the moment. But anyway, is what it is.
All right, well, let's bring in the other bloke where they're untouched by this little trauma.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Boss.
Yeah, untouched in SA, but I've got something for both of you gentlemen. First one for you, BP.
Yes, mate.
I'm joining the board of management for one of the local yacht clubs here.
Oh, nice.
The AGM's not until tomorrow night, so when people probably listen to this, it's kind of around about the same time. And I go in unopposed, so I've got the position. But first meeting, first order of business, remove all photos of Jordan Spencer in yacht club. Don't tell anyone. Right.
Okay, no worries.
First order of business.
Okay.
And then for you, Jay.
Which club's that? I've got my photo up in so many clubs.
Yeah, no, Adelaide Sailing Club.
Adelaide Sailing Club.
Yeah,
What role are you going for, mate? Bar manager?
Oh, no, just board member. Board management.
member. Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, good.
So,
Just be warned, boss, I'm a bit like Russ. You can never quite get rid of me.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm afraid of. Everywhere I look, there's another bloody photo of you somewhere.
Don't let this man in.
All right, Jordan, this one for you. Do you have any Chinese ancestry by any chance?
Oh, not that I could say.
Because I've come across, I've been sent an article, and just whilst just listen to this for a sec. The discovery of a huge fossilised skull that was wrapped up and hidden in a Chinese well nearly 90 years ago has forced scientists to rewrite the story of human evolution. Analysis of the remains has revealed a new branch of the family tree that points to a previously unknown sister group more closely related to modern humans than the Neanderthals. The extraordinary fossil has been named a new human species, the Jordus spenceus.
Very cool.
You make that whole thing up?
No. That was sent in by one of our avid listeners. And 100% true, 23% of the time.
So a new species with a big head is what I'm taking from that conversation.
Yeah, you're leading the way.
Hey, is he from Nairobi and does he have $400 billion that he's got to give you?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. He's a prince and you're a cousin. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, well, should we kick this off? We've got a great
let's
guest
go.
this week.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So this week, as you know, we keep hitting it out of the park with our guests, and this week is absolutely no different. Very excited, actually. World champion in the IMOCA, a world champion in the FICO class, an OBE, the most excellent order of the British Empire, which I think is the greatest title, the most excellent.
Yeah, most excellent, yeah.
Is a British Order of Chivalry. So this man will be a gentleman and a class act and is a bit of a legend in the world of sailing, and we are very excited to chat to Mr. Mike Golding. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Nice to join you.
It's an absolute pleasure.
No pressure at all, though. I mean, that's quite a lot to live up to. I'm not sure it's most excellent.
Did it put
I'm
much
not sure
pressure?
anything most excellent.
Did it put much pressure on Mike when you got it? And you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, I really got to step up my game.
You got to stay squeaky clean.
I reckon you do a little bit. You'd have to, surely. But the most excellent order of the British Empire, I just love that. That's my favourite thing I've ever seen. I'm going to have to become a POM and try and get that order. Oh, I shouldn't have said
There
that.
you
The
go.
phone's going to ring now. All these idiot pond mates are just going to ring. No, you're not coming in. All right. Okay, Mike, you're a bit of a legend in the offshore world. A major achievements, lots of world records, lots of IMOCA races. You've done the British Challenge,
Challenge, yeah.
the BT Global Challenge. So,
Yep.
have you always wanted to be an offshore sailor, or was it?
I guess I've always enjoyed offshore. I mean, even my very early sailing, I mean, obviously, like most people, I sailed in dinghies, but and windsurfers. I was a very early windsurfer. But pretty much as soon as I discovered offshore and traveling between one invisible place and another, I realised that I was, I absolutely loved it, and from there just took it forward. But I was a professional fireman for 11 years, first 11 years of my career, and it took me a while to start being a sailor, and I didn't really start till I was 31. So, but I was sailing since 9. I sailed most of the way around the world when I was 18 on a little tiny catamaran.
What was that with? What was that on, and who was it with?
A yacht designer called Pat Patterson, and the boat was a 33-foot Ocean Winds. And he was a retired maths teacher turned yacht designer, which was perfect because I'd completely bombed out on maths, and he taught me to navigate and use with sextant and traditional methods, and taught me a lot about sailing. And it was a fabulous experience. But I did a very long sail with Pat and a couple of other people. I went down through Magellan Straits, went the wrong way through Magellan Straits. I seem to have spent my life going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, there's quite a few. There's quite a few of us who do that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, extraordinary experience. If you ever get a chance to go to the tip of South America, I mean, everyone obviously always knows Cape Horn, but the Straits just inside Cape Horn are absolutely extraordinary. A really untouched part of the world, still untouched, I imagine, even today. And there's some fabulous sailing to be had in there. So,
Well, that sounds like a story unto itself, really. I mean, to go around the world on a 30-foot catamaran. Was that sort of...
that was big back then.
Yeah, true. But was that sort of, I guess in cruise mode, how long did that take you?
Oh, it took forever because we stopped every 5 minutes. It drove me absolutely crazy, which is why in the end I got off. And I always like big adventures. I like setting the goal post a long way ahead. So, for instance, I got off the boat. We went out to Juan Fernandez, Robinson Crusoe Island, came back in, and we were in the marina at not a marina. We were anchored at in Valparaiso, and it was only 2 of us on the boat at that time. The other 2 had skipped off and gone ashore and decided they'd had enough of it. And I had the first argument with the skipper, first and last, because the next day I got off the boat and I hitchhiked to Montreal.
Jeez.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
so I kind of like setting those impossible boundaries.
wow. Did the guy just not stop and you couldn't get out, or that hitchhiking that long?
The truth is, it reached. I mean, I was as a teenager, and and the truth is, it just reached its natural conclusion. We'd never argued, and we kind of got to a point where it reached the natural conclusion. But the whole thing came to a head because I tied the dinghy on his side, and it was bumping against the boat, and he woke up and he moved it round to my side, and I moved it back again. So there you go. There's a little lesson for you cruising sailors. Don't move the dinghy around.
And was this Pat, actually, that you had the argument with?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought you were going to lead into you were going to rewrite Pythagoras' theorem or something. And as a mathematician, he was staunch in his ways.
No. He was an amazing guy. He was proving his design by sailing it the wrong way around the world, which he did.
Yeah. Wow.
very cool. 33-foot catamaran. No, he took 3 years over it, but
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going the wrong way.
But he stopped everywhere. Huh?
Yeah.
Literally, you'd hardly had time to put the kettle on, and we were stopping again.
Very funny.
So how did you get into sailing? What was the catalyst for you getting into sailing, Mike?
I watched my dad fail to learn, and then realised that it was something I could do better than my dad. Which when you're 9, it's kind of cool to be able to do something a bit better than your dad. But I was at his. He used to take me Sunday afternoons to watch him learn to sail, and the guy that owned the sailing school took pity on me and just said, if you do a few jobs around the place, you can get access to the boats, and he'll help me, teach me. And that's how it began. But they were quite innovative. It was we were sailing enterprises primarily, but we had very early versions of windsurfers, and so we were learning out. Literally, I learned how to windsurf by getting on a board, getting blown to the far side of the lake in amongst all the weeds, and then spending the whole day trying to figure out how to make this thing go upwind to get out. But so I was covered in mud and weeds, because this is a gravel pit. It's not a very exciting gravel pit just outside London.
Wow.
Well, have to say.
So I mean, I was always super keen on sailing, super passionate about taking on the challenge of sailing, as well as, and then the racing kind of came later. It came really when I was a fireman. I started doing things like the Azores and Back race. So I'd set myself one major race a year, every year. And I did the Azores and Back, which is quite a long race, about 3,000 miles.
What was that on, Mike?
A boat called Tal, a 35-foot ULDB designed by Hal Price. It was 35-foot long and had a 6-foot beam, so you can imagine it was a real pencil. And it had a keel of 11-foot draft or something.
What?
And it had an Impala rig. And in the right conditions, the boat would absolutely smoke a lot. But contrary to belief, they don't go. Very slim boats don't go upwind particularly well. And so, but we had a great race. I think we were second in our class, in our division. But then the following year, I did a single-handed transatlantic race, the original O-Star, in '88. And then '89, I did on a little trimaran, by the way, on a 26-foot trimaran, Kelsall designed trimaran, which I glued 4 foot onto to get into the 30-foot class, because you needed to be 30 foot. And I literally glued 4 feet of boat onto the back end of it and said, right, I'm big enough.
Wow.
Wow.
The original sugar scope. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Or as in the moths are talking about now, the rudder gantry.
yeah. It's just an expanded rudder gantry. But yeah, so that got me across the Atlantic on a tiny little trimaran, which was an extraordinary experience. Remember, you're 88, you're talking pre-GPS.
Pre-everything.
Pre most things, pre-SATCOM or anything like that. So completely off the grid, doing this thing, ending up on the Grand Banks and in the middle of fog and ships coming by and not even noticing you were there. Pretty scary.
Yeah.
But and then the following year, I did the round Britain and Ireland race, and then a couple of years later, I got into the British Steel Challenge, and that really is where my pro career, if you like, began. I got a very good relationship with Group 4, who were my sponsors for that race, and they remained my sponsors for some 11 years. And we did a lot of projects. We did 3 runway round races, 2 with crew, and one solo where I broke the record and went faster than Che. And sort of really it wasn't really so much breaking a record, it was more establishing a benchmark because boats had moved on so much. From that, I think 5 or 6 people have broken it since, or 3 or 4 people have broken it since. So, but and then we built Team Group 4. Fino designed, and I took part in my first Vendée Globe in 2000. So. And then it just became a succession of Vendée Globes.
Yeah. Hey, just before we actually get into the Vendée Globe, because that's a whole nother, that's an episode in itself. But going back to those early days, and you're on the Grand Banks in this trimaran, a 26 plus 4 foot trimaran, and do you often think back now and like, holy shit, I got away with a bit there? Like, ignorance is bliss sometimes. Yeah. But now when you think back about it, does it scare you a little bit?
Not at all. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, sure.
I absolutely loved it. But it was just throwing yourself out there. I mean, it just felt like you kind of knew you were on a limb. The funny thing was I spent loads of time refurbishing that boat and making it look beautiful. And then I rocked up in Plymouth for the start of the Transat, and suddenly my little 26-foot boat, which I'd kind of imagined as being quite a bit of kit, just looked so stupid in amongst all those beautiful French, the multi-hulls that were around at the time. There's so many cool boats in that race, and I'm there with my little boat with a bit glued on the back of it, But once you get out there, you can kind of let your mind forget all that and still think you're on a pretty cool boat. And I was on the Grand Banks, mostly in fog. Grand Banks was doing its deliberate thing. But by then, I'd been days since I'd been able to get a sight and a position. I mean, it's just hard to imagine that in this day.
Missed it. Yeah, exactly.
But it was, so I was doing everything on DR, basically, because you could call it EP, but it wasn't really EP because there were no other factors except course and speed and a bit of guesswork. And I realised that I was looking for RDF beacons, radio direction finding beacons, and I got my book out of North America on the east coast of the USA, and I suddenly realised it stopped at Nova Scotia, and of course, so I had no beacon information, no port information, no coastal information, no buoyage information, nothing at all. Just a big chart, and which was soggy and damp and all the rest of it. And I had to stop in St. John's because the beam and the float had detached and it was moving about, and the float was filling up with water, and it was getting a little bit dodgy. So, so I thought, well, how am I going to get to St. John's? And I had to scroll through on a radio direction finder until I heard a Morse code signal, and then decode the Morse code signal. And the Morse code signal was CR, and CR, it had to be Cape Race, and it was broadly in the right direction. And I single point fixed myself with just one beacon into Cape Race, into St. John's. And if you've ever been to St. John's, you come out the fog, and it's just cliffs. Wow. And the entrance is a slot in the cliffs, and you opens out into St. John's Harbour. It's beautiful. But if you get it wrong, you're on the cliffs. You're on the cliffs. And so I came bowling out the fog, single point fixing on Cape Race, which is about 500 miles to the south. And there it is, right in front of me. And that was magical. I mean, it was a sort of, but it was magical. It was lucky. It could have gone so badly wrong. But because it didn't, it just adds fuel to the fire.
Because it didn't, you find yourself on Bar Karate tonight. Talking about it.
There you go. It could have gone another way, but I mean, things like that, they're treasured memories. They're and there's little nuggets of stories like that just are very, very cool. And the funny thing about it is, I mean, a lot of my sailing is solo. And the oddity of solo sailing is that, only you're out there. So you don't get to tell these stories. So it's quite nice to be able to, you don't get to tell these stories very often, because the reality is you can't go in the pub every night and tell people the same these stories, because very quickly you find yourself repeating.
And
then you're that.
We can relate to that. We can relate to that. But feel free, if you've got any other little gold nuggets in there, just send them our way. We're happy to listen.
Oh, I mean, no worries. But so that's how it all began, really. But and I'm still just as passionate about the sport, and the sport's been really good to me. And I've had some great sponsors that have really looked after me and helped me and stood by me when things have gone wrong. We all know, all of you guys know, the more sailing you do, along the way, you're going to have some upsets. And that's just the nature of it. You can't have the perfect sailing career. You can only have the one you had.
And speaking of which, and that leads us into the IMOCA world. Pretty much from 2000 onwards, right? Was it kind of doing everything that you prior to that? Was it a dream to be part of the IMOCA fleet, or it just kind of fell that way? Yeah,
we built Team Group 4 in 98. So I did the Around Alone race from which was the old BOC.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember, but is the previous edition, Isabella Tissier
flipped it over.
Yep.
Flipped it over. But she'd also won the first leg to Cape Town from Charleston. And I was able to win that leg and literally just squeeze round Isabel. So that was my first outing in an open 60. I mean, I had the most fabulous boat, don't get me wrong. I had a Fino designed boat, deck spreaders, the rig very similar to the kind of rigs you're seeing on contemporary IMOCAs now. Canting keel, which at the time was very unusual to have a canting keel and a wing mast. So I think it was only the third adopter of at 60 foot of a canting keel. So when we had a carbon keel, everything was pretty out there. But the boat was a blast. It was just such a blast to sail. I'd grown up in here in the UK. You grow up, and we had the Ostar, the 2-star, the Round Britain race, the Rosenbach race. We had all these little races, which were well attended by the French, and the French were kind of still very much developing their current sailing circuit. The Vendée Globe wasn't even there then. It was the BOC. And but if you really wanted to see the state-of-the-art French boats, which were doing events like the Rue de Rhum traditionally, if you wanted to see them, then you went down to the starts in Plymouth, and I used to be down there drooling at all the hardware and just the sort of presence of the skippers that moved through the marina. It's just the whole thing felt extraordinarily special. And so then when I felt like I felt like I'd sneaked in there. I felt like an interloper. I didn't, I definitely had for a long time, I used to sit in rooms with names of people who I'd grown up with and think, how did I check this? How did I get in here? Wow. It felt very strange.
How did they sort of approach you or feel about you being there? They were fine. I mean, I've spent a fair bit of time with the French, and they're good guys. Yeah,
brilliant. I mean, so embracing, so particularly as you're a kind of Brit in a very sort of French environment, very French dominated environment. So, you know, I was the glouche, the roast beef.
Roast beef.
The Yorkshire pudding.
and they were into it. They were fine, and they were, you know, they always promoted having a big international contingent. And I suppose I'd done myself no harm by commissioning a French designer.
Well, Fino, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so and building in France and working with a lot of French people, because, you know, the way to get into that game at the time was to be a part of that circuit and realise who was these were the most experienced, best people at this area of the sport. So the more you could be around them, the more you learned. And so Vendée in 2000 was my first calamity, though, because not my first, actually, my second, because my first calamity was leading the around alone race and hitting that little island down in the South Pacific there somewhere. I think in North Island.
But that's not on many maps.
I mean, we went past as the Sydney Hobart race was having its epic year.
Yeah.
Arse handed to him. Yep.
98.
Yeah. And in 98, I was literally to the south in the same gale, and we were crossing on our way to Auckland. And so I was really, where was I? I was leading the fleet by a really good margin. I think I had 8 days on the next boat back, which was Giovanni. And Isabel had dropped out, I think. I'm struggling to remember. No, maybe she hadn't dropped out. But she was behind anyway. I was a couple of days ahead. So I was in a good shape. And then, unfortunately, someone sent a helicopter out. And when the helicopter arrived, we were a bit low and slow. So I thought, I'll put the bow up and make it a helicopter worth it. I did a bit too much of that and didn't look in close enough detail at some of the banks off the 91 mile beach, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And I hit the sand there and did a bit of damage to the keel. Well, ripped it out the boat basically.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way you describe it to the sponsor. There's a bit of damage to the keel.
But it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I'll go and get it later.
But, it actually just pinged the bulkhead that it was mounted onto. So quite a lot of water got into the boat really very quickly. I mean, Emokas are great because they're so compartmented, but I lost all my power in like 30 seconds. Like everything was dead. Anyway, but
so 98. So that was 98.
That was 98. Yeah. So that was my first disaster, where you go from being on the cusp of a magnificent victory to a crushing defeat.
Did the helicopter get this footage, or?
Yeah, I think it did. But it was paid for by us.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not sure it got anywhere.
Wow. All right. Well, feel free to whack it on our Facebook page. It's just Bark Karate Facebook.
Yeah. But I mean, that is one of those things. I mean, the way I've just told that, it sounds even worse than it really was.
No, sure.
But,
it's stories. It's what makes this.
The reality of it is it's sailing. So I learned a lesson there, and then Vendée Globe. I come to the Vendée Globe in 2000, full of expectation. I mean, everyone thinks, okay, so he had that disaster. But the fact of the matter is he was leading the race by a big margin. So, you're going to win this Vendée.
Roast beef is going to take it on.
Yeah. So I was there. But then, of course, I took the start and 8 hours off the start, forced a top of the funny thing was we were one of the first boats to adopt composite rigging, and we had soft rigging, Kevlar shrouds, everything on the boat was Kevlar, made by a little company on Ile de Goire in France, a company called Chenois, Black Dog. And this is how they made it. You'll like this. Drive stakes the right length apart into the ground.
Yep.
And then they put the mandrels on the stakes, and they literally
Wrap it around.
up and down between the stakes to make the runs, cinch it all together, and there's your cable.
Put a bit of heat shrink on it and call it good.
Exactly.
Electrical tape over the ends.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah. But and sure enough, that's what we had all over the boat. So you think we took a risk, but we thought the one bit of the rig we will not take a risk with is the forestay, because of course back then you had foils on the forestay. It wasn't just the stay itself. So we said, look, we'll go with rod because rod's safe. No, 6 hours after the start, the rod failed just below the. So there you go. And every other. So then we had to go back because it's so soon after the start. I was able to get back, put a new rig in the boat, and restart. But. And I restarted, obviously, firmly in last place, and I finished seventh.
That's right, seventh, yeah.
Seventh in the Vendée. So, that again was an adventure because you're in this race, and then suddenly you're not in the race. You're right at the back of the fleet. It was sort of what Jeremy Biu has had to do.
Exactly.
Last Vendée, and. The truth is, you're doing it for all the right reasons, but it takes a lot out of you when you're a competitor and you're trying to be a competitor, and then suddenly all the thing that drives you on is the thought that you might succeed, and so you take that away, and it all becomes very hard. But as soon as I started overtaking people, even though they were in significantly slower boats, I started to enjoy myself. Because so I still enjoyed it. I still learnt a lot, but it wasn't the Vendée Globe that I imagined when I signed up to do it.
The irony, what I love is the next Vendée, so 0405, where you made the podium. You were really innovative there, where you used a boat that had a sort of temporary keel.
Well, one you could jettison it off.
Exactly. Well, did you know that when I finished that Vendée, I was protested. I was taking. That's it. So I was.
You were underweight.
Yeah, they said I was out of class rules.
Oh, who protested you?
Yeah.
The committee, believe it or not.
Oh,
The committee there's a logic. Sorry.
Well, what was your timing for that one? 88 days, is that right?
88 days.
Well, it's what they say, right? The ideal boat falls apart when you go over the finish line. And what were you predicting? 86 days.
Yeah, no, 87. But yeah, if it lasted another 6 hours, I would have been tied up. So it could have literally
would have hated to have been the delivery crew.
You rock up at the marina. Thanks, guys. Can you get that over to wherever it's going to go? I'll see you later. I'll see you in 90 days. I'm done.
Here's where life is stranger than fiction, though, because the reality is the keel fell off. I had to figure out to sail the boat without the keel. Sailed about the last 90 miles with no keel on, upwind, which sounds really hard until you realise it's an IMOCA. It's really wide platform. You've got water ballast. You can sink the boat. You've got dagger boards. Do all the job of taking the boat upwind. So, in fact, it wasn't as hard as we thought. And when I finished in Le Sable, I finished at 3:00 in the morning. I was doing nine knots upwind.
Wow.
Yeah,
Good tack angles.
just got it dialed in. Just rewriting the polars.
Tiny little sail area, and just the boat is just stonking along. Yeah, so
This is faster than it was before.
it,
Not far off.
But here's the strange bit: is that I arrived there. Normally, I wouldn't have been able to go in, but of course, I could go straight in. Because,
You didn't have no kill.
How do you get in? How do you get in? It's low tide.
yeah, exactly. How's he doing that? How's he doing that? But then I got in, and of course, I'd got in much faster than we told everyone. We told them we'd arrive in the morning, and I got in really quick. I was being shadowed all the way by a French destroyer who were just waiting to pick up the pieces.
Or to sink you if you got too fast.
But I mean, the funny thing was, I went and crashed in the hotel when I got back, and someone had slid a note under the door, and it was a handwritten note from the mayor of Les Sables d'Olonne, saying, "Oh, congratulations, welcome to Les Sables d'Olonne." He said, "But you came in at 3:00 in the morning." And the people of Les Sables d'Olonne didn't get the chance to greet you down the canal like you normally would. Would you mind going back out and coming back in again? Which we duly did.
I was going to say, you would have, yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? So we'd got the boat 90 miles. But then we came to an agreement with the insurance company that the delivery crew that were going to take the boat back could sail the boat back with no kill.
As it was.
And that's what they did. They sailed the boat back with no kill. Wow. So I think there's a couple of good things going on there. There's a good boat, but a very good insurance company as well.
I've got a question for you there, Mike. When it actually happened, what explain that to us, because obviously you're sailing along, you know you're coming towards the end of the race, and all of a sudden the keel's gone. What exactly happened, and what was your first initial thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sailing along upwind. I've got probably 2 or 3 tanks of ballast in. But the boat's pressed, so I think 1 reef and a Solent. Mm-hmm. And the boat's well heeled over. I'm just having a little cup of coffee, watching the world go by, thinking about the race. Jean Le Cam wasn't that far away, so it was still catchable at that point, who was in second place. He was only a couple of miles ahead, but coming in at different angles.
Right.
But what happened was I put my coffee down, thought I've got to ease some sheets, and so I started easing the main, and then I started using a bit of jib and easing more, and the boat's going more and more over. It felt like a gust of wind. That's exactly what it felt like. But the thing is, it didn't fail completely, so it buckled. So it went vertical, but still the weight of the keel was still attached to the boat. But then there was this kind of weird 5 minutes where I quickly went down below, threw ballast in, not really, I don't know whether I did it at that moment, but I would put more ballast into the boat and started getting rid of the sail. But there was this weird moment where I looked into the top of the keel box and realised that the keel head and the ram and everything was all perfect. It all looked 100%. And then I went to the transom of the boat, laid down on the floor, stuck my head over the back of the boat. And then you're upside down, facing the wrong way, trying to look at a keel, and the keel's still there, but it was pointing the other way. So it was basically 90 degrees to the keel head. But that took forever to kind of work it out, because I kept thinking, what the hell's going on here?
Must have had some drag.
Yeah, well, it was. And then just as I got up to start acting on it, there was a little ting, like a rip of a Coke can opening or something, and the keel departed the boat. And honestly, it wasn't a massive difference. The boat just felt a bit lighter.
It's insane.
Okay. Well,
but by now, all the sails were on the deck. I had quite a bit of ballast in the boat because I'd thrown all the ballast valves open. So the boat was kind of safe.
Well, you clearly started a bit of a trend at that point, Mike, because people were just ejecting them all over the joint after that.
In about the same area.
I know, yeah. But the funny thing is that keel fell probably within a mile or two of the mast that had gone in the 2000 edition.
Oh, rightio.
The mast,
there's a little Bermudan triangle there or something.
Yeah, the Golden Triangle.
Triangle.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a
They
good
never
note.
got a hull. They never got the hull.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing because you're here to talk about it today. And
But this sort of
it adds to the spice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It actually, I have a theory.
Oh,
Here we go, Bossy. We're in now.
Yeah.
Ready?
All right.
So,
Get your pen out, Mike.
Mike, just hang in here. This is where it goes wild.
I have a theory. So you've lost your mast doing the Vendée. You've lost your keel. You know, just when you're a threat, everything started going wrong. You lost your forestay. Alex becomes a threat. He loses masts. He loses keels. You know, are the French sabotaging the boat?
Well,
Joking aside, my sponsor was completely convinced that we were being sabotaged. I mean, we weren't being sabotaged, but
it's all right, Mike. I've just checked the stats. Only 4% of our listeners are French, so go your hardest.
But I mean, you know, the reality of it is, it did have that conversation. Really did come up, and it came up quite genuine.
Nick Maloney,
Yeah, yeah.
keel off.
Did you have any fishing boats come close? Boris Herman? You know,
There's a pattern.
There's a pattern.
There is a bit of a pattern. Well, the fact the race starts in France is probably a good part of the reason for that pattern.
What have we started?
You know, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, because you end up talking about all the failures, but the reality is, I finished, of the 4 Vendées I did, I finished 3 of them.
Yeah.
And the only one I didn't finish, I was leading, and another rig carried over. So, I don't know. There's a bit of a pattern there. But, I mean, the Vendée's a tough race. It's a hard race to do, and it's an extremely hard race to win. So, you know, a lot of things have to fall right. So, it's a step on the podium of the Vendée. You know, when you've got 30-odd competitors, honestly, that's enormous. And when I might in 2004, because I'd been so close to winning that race and the only reason I was in third is because other things had gone wrong further down the track. But, you know, I felt it was a race I could have won. But I would have been mildly disappointed. But then the keel fell off, and I was just grateful to finish.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
So the fortunes just do a quick switch there. Yeah.
Yeah. Your head is a complete mess of the mind. I mean, you really have to have a strong constitution to keep going back and doing Vendées. I mean, or lack any imagination whatsoever.
Well, you know what you've got to go through after your first one, right? You know that it's going to be tough. You know that it's going to be hard work. You know that there's going to be times where you just wish you weren't out there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that is the thing. The strange thing is that the hard part of the Vendée is the whole process of getting to the Vendée.
Getting there.
Finding money and, you know, building a boat.
I thought you were going to say the build-up, like doing the TJV with like Bruno Dubois.
Putting up with Bruno for X amount of days.
He's my doppelganger.
I reckon he is too, to be honest.
It's like you've got the exact same haircut. Everything.
Yeah, I even got the T-shirt. Look.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he at your house? Where is he?
No. It's when he orders one of something, he just gets 2. No problem.
He's a good man.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to put my mind back here, but back in the early days of the Volvo campaign in the Volvo 70s, and Mike Sanderson was skippering ABN AMRO, and he told us this story that he jumped into the mockers and did a bit of the stuff prior to the Volvo campaign, and and your advice to him, because our inclination, if you wipe out, you cant the keel back the other way, you get everything up and running and you do these sorts of things. But his story to us was, that's not how Mike does it. If the boat wipes out, you walk out into the cockpit, light a cigarette, take a bit of a look around, see what's going on, because the keel's not there fighting what the wind wants to do. You sort your shit out while the boat's laying on its side, then you slowly right the boat back. So don't panic, basically.
Basically.
True or correct? Absolutely true.
You can ask Bruno about that. The two of us standing on, we're literally out in the cockpit, and Bruno's like wanting to release the runner, and we were going along with Kite, Staysail, and full main, and we had a massive wind shift, like seconds. The Kite back through the rig, the boat crashed over, fully wiped out, laid horizontal on the water, and the squall came through and it pouring with rain. Bruno and I are in the cockpit, and Bruno's like, "Right, we got to do this." And I'm
you were standing there with the bunger.
Yeah, and I said, "No, let's wait, because let's let the squall go by, and then the boat's completely safe like this." And we got the boat back up after the squall on the other jibe. The Kite completely intact, nothing damaged, not a single thing broken on the boat. And we'd had to wait 20 minutes for the squall to go by. Yeah. It was just the front. But I mean, the boat's completely deloaded when it's going on its side, and you won't break anything at that moment. I always compare it to a game of pick up sticks. You know, you've got to do everything in the right sequence, so it all goes wrong. You know, and you know, I've done that a few times, and a few different people have been quite surprised how laconic I can be.
Just standing around, waiting, relaxing, chill out. Cool. You'll be right.
I think they invented smoking for solo sailors. It's just an excuse to do nothing.
Hang on, one step further. They invented smoking for solo sails while in the middle of a wipeout.
Yeah.
The 5 minute roll. The 5 minute roll.
Banger up. We're all good here.
Don't smoke, kids. All right?
No, don't smoke. That's right.
And I don't smoke now.
No.
So have there ever been times, you know, like you're saying you're super calm, have there ever been times where you've just gone, I'm a bit nervous here?
Oh, Christ, yeah.
What's the worst?
Yeah. The worst one, guys, it sounds like a disaster movie, this.
When Bruno turns up.
People like action, mate. People like action. They don't like all the...
Okay. The worst one was on the 2000 Vendée, with my second rig up, we'd thrown the rig together, and when I got down in the south, I had problems with a Facnor furling gear. One of the welds
wrench.
Okay. And basically it failed, and I needed to go up the rig. It was way too rough in the Southern Ocean, so I decided to sail really close to some islands near the Crozet Islands, and I'm trying to remember the name of the island. It will come to me. So that I could get in the lee of the island to allow me enough time to go up the rig and do the work and come down again. So I sailed in close to the islands, about a mile offshore, had all my gear ready, shot up the rig, saw enough the seas leveled out, it was beautifully calm, left full sail up, and just because I figured I had enough time.
Here we go.
Got up there, and the problem was slightly different. I had to figure it out. And then while I was up there, some Frenchmen came over the hill, French scientists came over the hill and was kind of waving at me, and I'm waving back. And it's all kind of very weird in a Vendée Globe sort of way. And no, he really was waving at me as opposed to waving at me for impending disaster. But basically, I just ran out of island and so started to go out into the seaway again. So the boat just does a little lazy lob. And of course, at the top of the rig, a little lazy lob is quite an adventure.
Yeah.
And I realised at that point, I'd rammed because the work had been right on the top of the rig, I'd rammed my ascender right up into the block. And because the ascender's right in the block, there was no way I could detach it. Yeah, so I had to climb out of the chair that I was in. And luckily, I got up in a chair in a harness, and so I had to climb out the thing, reclip, and go down on a descender on a different halyard. So the descender was rigged for 11 mil, but climbing ropes are a 10 mil, So, maybe so. The reality was on this Vectran rope, it had two settings. It had clamped or released. So a minute I moved away from the masthead and was still slamming, I felt really out of control because you couldn't really hold on because, at the top you could sort of wrap your legs around it. But once I started going down, I felt really out of control. So I had to make a really quick decision and just threw myself out onto the mainsail, squeezed, and tried to guess where to stop.
Holy God.
And I just went down the sail.
There you go, listeners.
And then a very squeaky voice for a while. But I was convinced
Giant skid mark.
I was convinced that I was going to be a, sort of bloody bag of meat at the top of the rig.
Absolutely.
Heading down towards Antarctica and this is the thing, things that are normal on a crude boat, even if you're double-handed, when you go solo, even the most benign thing can suddenly turn really nasty really quickly. And that was, I really thought I'd overcooked it that time because all of this, I was trying to get out of it. And, I smacked my head. I had a big cut down my head. And, I was in a bit of a mess. I'm pretty sure I did 3 vertebrae in that descent. Wow. I compressed 3 vertebrae and my back's never been the same since. But, so I was in a bit of a mess. But, I've finished the Vendée and amazing what you can do with ibuprofen.
Exactly.
Amongst other things.
in saying that then, and to give you the opportunity to not mention another train wreck, the greatest achievement, apart from, of course, the most excellent Order of the British Empire.
Well, I'm immensely proud of the challenge races. I was second in the British Steel Challenge, and we won the BT Global Challenge. Really convincingly, we won 5 of 6 legs, and the leg we didn't win, we came second on. So, it was. I'm very proud of that, all that period, because I also went the wrong way round record and so on. So it was a very strong period. In terms of IMOCA, I'm hugely proud to have won the Transat. I've won 2 Transats, in fact. And the Transat, I grew up with that race, and it's difficult to understand if you're of my generation. That was the race. There was no Vonda or BSC.
Yeah, sure.
So to me, that it was a real buzz to win that. And I won the Defi Atlantic, which is another solo Transat, and the SM. So there were lots of, and overall, and also getting to the point of being a IMOCA world champion at a point where we were actually got prize money for that. So it meant something. That was an extraordinary. But the odd thing is, being British, we're only 60 miles away, but it was virtually unacknowledged in the UK. But in France,
amazing.
So it's kind of really weird situation as a sportsman to find yourself excelling at a game that just no one in the UK really knew about.
Yeah.
But it's got better. I mean, it's got better. We've had lots of strong advocates. I was there for a long time, and now you've got Alex and and Pip and all the rest of it coming through and making better stories. But God, it's slow. It's a slow process to try and move the sporting culture in this direction. It's coming, but
obviously, Mike, you've had some. Well, we all remember from a sporting point of view and a commercial point of view, Ecover sponsorship, but you've had some fantastic sponsors the whole way through your career, right?
Yeah.
That have stuck by you not only for one race but for several races. I think when we actually met in where were we, in Brazil, when you came over for the Volvo stopover, and you were telling me one of your sponsors who had literally stayed with you pretty much your whole journey. Yeah,
I mean that's basically, there was a continuity between Ecover and Group 4.
Group 4, yeah.
And the continuity was a chap called Jürgen Philip Sorensen, who was the owner of Group 4 and the owner of Ecover. And he was the kind of continuous element that ran through the project. And he was passionate about it, passionate about the sailing, passionate about the sea, and he could see the value it was bringing his organisations. And with Ecover in particular, Ecover now have a factory in France, which they wouldn't have had without the introduction of the sailing project. So there's some tremendous success stories for sponsors and sailing working together. So yeah, it's.
I've got to say that I look back at those days and I just remember the boat. I remember the colours. I remember the brand.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about branding and you're talking about how it works, that's how it works.
That's how it works. I mean, in the case of Group 4, Group 4 is a slightly different entity because, the Group 4, at the time, it was just a security company, but now it's kind of almost a political entity, in its guise as G4S. But just one story about that sponsorship. We were sat at a dinner in South Africa, having won the leg into Cape Town, and I was just getting tucked in, and someone came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Can you come over and meet the minister?" And at the time, it was the Minister of Corrections for the ANC party.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he started chatting away and said, Mr. Golding, tell me about your prisons in the UK. And I thought, I don't know anything about prisons in the UK. But one of the guys on my boat was a senior VP of Group 4. And so I introduced the two of them. And later that evening, my crew member came to me and said, "Look, I'm going to have to leave the boat for some of the prep period, but I'll be back," and all the rest of it. So he disappeared back to the UK, appeared a few weeks later with some colleagues and some paperwork. They did a deal in South Africa where to design, build and manage for 25 years the first South African private prison, and it was the first of 3, so they did 3. So that contract will only just have expired. So,
wow.
After that, we had a Scottish financial officer at Group 4 who always used to be very Scottish about spending money on yachting projects. And after that, he said, "If you ever need anything ever again, you've paid for it."
Wow, well done.
It was huge. It was huge business. So this is how things work. It's not always straight lines. It's sometimes, sometimes things work in funny ways. And
you just got to be there. You just got to be there.
No, and that goes to prove, Jordan, something you've mentioned many times on the show. There's a lot more to than just what a campaign costs. It's what value the campaign brings on a B2B business behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw so many deals go down during the Volvo race in the Sailors Terrace, which you don't hear about. But this is one of the examples of when you have something good there and it leads to something. But speaking of good and leading to something, the Ecover, obviously the involvement in that, and now your role as what's the exact title? The chairman of the World Sailing
I chair
Sustainability.
the Sustainability Commission at
Yeah.
World Sailing. So we're a commission. We're not, we're a commission of experts. I'm not an expert at all, but I'm just chair of the thing. And we've got people from all around the world, all different fields, all different areas of speciality, to help World Sailing create an agenda to improve its sustainability profile, to improve the sport's sustainability profile. And it's done hugely well. A fact that it's been recognised very recently by the IOC. And sailing has one of the best. I mean, there are obviously many reasons to think that sailing might be, but actually there's also many reasons, as we all know, to think that we're probably the worst culprits in terms of not being sustainable. But there are actions the sport can take to improve its sustainability profile, and it's done remarkably well, very, very quickly. I mean, we were brought together in 2018 to create an agenda for 2030. 25% of the initial recommendations have already been fulfilled and completed. So what we realised is, why are we doing this for 2030? We could do this now.
Speed it up.
And of those that aren't completed, most of them are on track. Some of them require innovative technical solutions, for instance, end of life for materials. And some of them require wholesale rethinking of how we approach the sport. And, so the reality is there's still a lot of work to be done. But we've got a new commission, a new bunch of commission members this year. And, we're looking for new input, fresh input, and trying to make things better. So, and that's, as you say, Nick, that's kind of stemmed from firstly involvement with Ecover, and then as a result of that, I became an ambassador for the Green Blue, for the RAA's Green Blue initiative, which is a UK sustainability project, and I've steadily got more and more involved with it, and now, currently, I'm involved with with an organisation that are developing a sustainable composite. So, in other words, a glass fibre equivalent that you can build a boat and take the fibre and the resin and disassemble it and make another boat.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Anyway.
That is the
Exciting times. It's just one of those things, isn't it, that we've got to keep testing and keep moving forward and keep trying. I guess we're all in a position to do something in terms of getting the answers.
I think we're all despite the wrongs and the rights, we're all of the right mindset within this sport that we need to do more, right?
Yeah.
And if we can lean on some of the things that have been developed in the past and about to be developed in the future, it's only going to be better, and it's going to give our sport much, much better name. So,
I think that's exactly true. I mean, we actually, as sailors, we're out there experiencing it, and we just talk. Let me ramble on about my career, but through my career, I can tell you, when I started, we used to use routing charts and they actually worked, and at the end, you can't rely on the weather at all. It's completely messed up. And the reality is that is climate change. Now, I'm not going to get into that detail, but the reality is it's happening real quick. And so as sailors, we see these things, and I don't think, and I think we're also in a position of strength to be able to describe that to other non-sailors, and it puts us in a strong place. So yeah, we have some responsibilities.
So Mike, we've sort of chewed up our time super quickly because it's been so much fun. I do want to ask, what is next for you? Like, you're on looking at all the positions and things you're doing. You're so busy. Have you got time to go sailing, or?
I haven't been doing much. I mean, I've got a moth. I've got an Exocet, so I do that, and I go out and crash that around quite a lot.
Have you got the stern extension?
The gantry?
Yeah, I've got all the gear and absolutely no idea. Yeah, I mean, talk about car crash TV. I mean, that's just another. I mean, honestly, I haven't trusted myself during the pandemic because the thought I live next to River Hamble. The thought of being lifted out of the Solent by a lifeboat. Mike Golding rescued from moth in the middle of
the Solent.
In the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a stage 3 lockdown.
That would have been like a double whammy. So I couldn't bring myself to do that. So I haven't been out on that moth. We got an RS 400, which is a much more sensible family boat. Yep. So I do a bit of that. And who knows? In the back of my mind, there's still some offshore sailing I'd like to do. Not necessarily racing, but just some kind of cool.
I thought Michael was going to squeak out there. I thought one.
Or how about the Global Ocean Challenge?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, no.
Oh.
That was a no. That's the equivalent to the New Zealand no.
Yeah, but it means the same thing. No. Yeah.
Well, just maybe a subtle hint then, just, my finishing question for you then. What boat turns you on most? Like, out of all the things that are going on at the moment, right from America's Cup right through to the moths, through to offshore, everything, what boat turns you on the most at the moment?
The Maxi Multi-Hulls. Definitely.
Yeah, the old teams?
Oh, yeah.
The old teams is the way to go. It's there. I mean, you don't actually need... One of my favourite boats, 100% that I've sailed is Mod 70. I sailed on Fado quite a bit with Brian.
Yep.
And, those boats are virtually, I mean, as near as damn it indestructible.
Wow.
And they are just complete and utter weapons. First time I went out with Brian, we left Cows, and he said, "Oh, we're just on delivery. We were going down to the Med.
That old trick.
We're going to keep it cool.
We're going to keep it cool. Nothing over 25 knots, and which is a lot of speed, yeah. But I mean, I think 6 hours later, we're in the middle of the night. It's pouring with rain. We're going across the English Channel at 39, 40 knots. And I've got my hood up and I'm looking at Brian, who's obviously just monitoring everything. And I'm looking at the little wry smile and he just loves it.
He's not slowing this thing down.
And he was the 25 knot barrier went quickly out the window. But those boats are awesome, but put those boats on foils, wow, that must be amazing. So, I think those are my favourite boats. And the other thing is they're kind of project boats. The only thing is they're so big, everything happens the projects are too long, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to see, if they're going to do this, it would be good if they did a race every year and something to keep us interested. I think what do you guys think about the foilers and the ocean race, and what your take on that?
Well, that's starting a whole new segment.
Oh, it is
100%.
I think
isn't it interesting?
It is. Yep.
I don't think we're surprised with the way, from a performance point of view, things happen in the Europe. Round Euro race, just due to the time of year and the winds that are expected. It'll be a complete different story once the IMOCAs can get there, just put the foot down. Absolutely. But it is still so interesting, but it's a complete new discipline for the IMOCAs. call it fully crewed with 4 people or 5 people, but it's a complete new discipline for them all. So what I don't hope is they don't get scared too much about it and that they're not afraid to chuck crew on board and be part of the race, because I think it'll be phenomenal. The 65s will just keep knocking at the door 100%, but the IMOCAs, that is where, well, whether it be crash and burn or just absolute some of the best sailing you've ever seen, I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the reality is the ocean race route, though, is still leaning towards a non-foiling solution because they're crossing the equator, 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
6 times, yeah. So, because they're crossing the equator and the doldrums and there's so much upwind and light airs, a foiler's going to always suffer in those conditions. I mean, remember, those foilers were really designed for the Vendée, which is
absolutely
go south, stay south, and come north again. It's going to be fascinating, and
I just think we're going to see a bunch of development still. I think it's going to develop. Yeah. It's going to find itself a niche. It's going to find itself a balance, and we're going to find boats that do it. And that's, I think, where we're going to head.
Yeah, who would have thought it, mate?
Yeah, who would have?
Exactly. Well, good, easy solution. Just run the ocean race with 4 or 5 stopovers, and then everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, keep the boats in the south, you mean?
Yep, basically.
Yeah,
basically.
Go back to the old Whitbread style.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I must admit, I think there's a lot to be said for that. The classic venues, the classic backdrops, Cape Town, Sydney, Auckland, the classic backdrops to yacht racing. I think that's where it is. But unfortunately, money has driven
the commercial.
The commercial pull of the Far East has kind of pulled the race north. And I'm guessing it will continue to do that.
Yep, I think you're right. Now, I've just got one question, Mike, before we wrap it up. I'm sure the boys have something as well. Now, just bear with me a little bit here, but when Kevin got off his boat during the last Vendée, rumour had it that John Le Cam kicked him off pretty quick smart because he kept eating all his cheese. How about you and Alex? What really pissed you off about having Alex on board?
Honestly, the two of us got on that boat and we laughed our way to
I could imagine.
We were just rolling. I mean, it was just because what else could you do? We're both nominally out of the race, but we just had such a laugh, and we became the very best of friends. So
you had life to celebrate because there's no you were together and you were able to survive and all that sort of stuff. So you would have had that on.
We're very similar. We're very similar sense of humour, and we're similar characters, obviously, and we both love the same things. And it was just we just laughed our way all the way to Cape Town.
Did you do a handover of the official name of roast beef with the Frenchies?
He officially took it on. He's now
he has. He is roast beef.
Yeah, he is very good. But no, he's had a tough time though. I mean, my career. I've managed to make my career sound like a disaster story, but the reality is, it is hard. And Alex's situation now is tremendously hard because what does he do now? Does he build another new boat? Go again? When you know that the odds of exactly the same thing or something similar happening all over again, and then him being painted into history or sailing history as just being someone who had epic disasters. I mean, that's not fair because his sailing performances have exceeded that, but and it wouldn't be fair. So he's in a really difficult situation, Alex.
Write that down, Jordan.
Yep.
Alex has promised to come on the show, so we're going to ask him exactly that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's got it all worked out. You know, I mean, he's not shy of coming up with a few innovative ideas. You know, maybe here's a thought. Combining my last two thoughts, why doesn't Alex go into maxi multi-hulls?
Yeah, good call.
Get Hugo Boss into the old team circuit.
That would be cool. There you go. I like it. I really like it, Mark.
You heard it first here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nah, cool. Bloody good.
Right. I think we're going to have to call it there. We've gone way over time because we're having too much fun.
I think we've got the usual.
Oh, mate, we haven't even touched the rest of the other stuff.
No,
we're going to have to get you on again, Mike.
Hey, Mike, yeah. 100%. Do you mind if we get you back on?
Absolutely. I'm quite happy if you're not bored to death of listening to my disaster stories.
No, absolutely not.
Cool.
We'd love to have you back on, mate.
No, it's been a pleasure, guys. Real pleasure.
Yeah.
Well,
nice to see you all. I mean, it's just so weird. We've all been cooped away for so long. I mean, it's weird in so many different ways. So,
yeah.
Hope to see you on the water.
Absolutely. Cheers, Mike. Thanks.
All right. Take care, guys. All the best.
Stories is probably the big one from that. I think we've got probably about another 4 or 5 hours worth of sitting down and listening to one Mike Golding go through what he's been through.
Mate, how good.
Yeah.
You know the
and starting a yachting career at 31.
Yeah.
Imagine the stories he would have had when he was a young fella.
Yeah. The only regret I had with that whole interview, that whole discussion, is we weren't all sitting in a pub together having a beer and actually doing the real thing. Like, I reckon that could have been.
Well, I must say, gents, I had the pleasure, and I alluded to it during the interview, but of having a few beers with Mike at one of the Volvo Ocean Race stopovers. And that's where that whole thing came about, his sponsor, Group 4, which ended up having that big deal in South Africa. I remember him telling me that now. And fantastic individual, top bloke, and great storyteller as well. And it's all like our language, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Nice.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I just think that he deserves another crack at having a couple of yarns. I think that's the way we got to treat it, you know. Booked in.
Book him in.
Book him in.
Book him in, Eddie. Cool. Right, let's move it on. So, any secret pro news? Oh, dear, oh dear.
Oh, here we go. Yep, there is, but I'm not telling you.
Oh, that old trick.
There is. There's a lot going on, and we know what it's all about.
Let me guess. Moths?
Well, they want to be a part of it.
Etchels.
Apparently, the Moths want to be a part of it, so they've started their own little bit of backlash. But
controversy.
Yeah. And we'll go. I'm sure that'll come up in a second. But
Etchels. Obviously, Etchels.
Yeah, look. So
there is.
We've received a stack of correspondence. Some of it is amazing. There is some really. We are desperate not to do the wrong thing by the Etchel class here. We want everything to resolve. So we are seeing so much stuff, and some of it just blows our mind. Once it comes out and once it's public or once it's resolved, then we think we'll talk about it.
Or just a little bit before.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit before.
Just that sneaky bit before.
Yeah, but... so we're desperately trying to do the right thing by the Etchel class is our goal. Yes. So hopefully we are. We're trying to.
It's a fine balance, isn't it?
It's hard, isn't it?
Every time, as much as let's put it this way, without a doubt, our most listened to episode, Mark Roberts, right?
Well, it's shot through the roof.
We're not doing it this podcast just to get maximum listeners, but it's a good feeling, but it's not the greatest subject because we can literally, if it goes the wrong way, we can literally see a class unravel,
self-destruct. Yeah. And that is not what we want. We do not want that.
No.
I mean, Bicey.
I don't think anyone.
Bicey, you sail on it. What build is yours, mate?
Fuck if I know. She's a white one.
Oh, it's a white one. Yeah, I was going to say it's a white one. Oh, so you sail a white. Yeah.
1980 something. I don't know. So put it this way, it's still got the original backstay fitting.
Well, no, I had it.
Oh, dear.
Still
All
last
right,
week.
all right.
No,
Let's
but
move
the
on.
point is, hang on a second. Let's before we do move on, we want to see the positive outcome for this class, and we want to see. But like all of us and everyone out there, we just want to know the truth. That's all. That's it. Same with the lasers last year, and same with the what's going to happen with these moths. They're kind of like the little kid, like coming along and these guys are all having conspiracies. Let's have a go at ourselves.
What are you saying, BP? The moths are cheating now.
Well, no, they're not cheating, but there's a couple of people insinuating they are with these new gantries. Well, not the new gantries. They've been.
I'll tell you what, the latest Facebook correspondence has
been brutal,
blown the Olympic discussion out of the water last week on social media.
Yeah. So what's going on?
We're getting some of the good ones involved. Cole Langford's there. Tommy Johnson.
Yep, they're all in there.
They're all in there.
Ian Brown's come on it from the
Tommy Johnson, the male model from Mudgee.
Model from Mudgee.
We'll get him on the show.
What is going on there? There is a controversy regarding the rudder gantries.
Yep.
And
which are in apostrophes bolt on.
Correct. And does the rudder gantry then become an extension of the hull?
The hull, yes.
So without taking side, and it's certainly not our place to give our opinion as to what is wrong and what is right there, because we'll just keep monitoring, of course, social media, because that's exactly where the truth comes from. But it certainly generated some interest, and essentially there's a maximum extension, I believe, from the transom of the moth, 500 mil, of which where the gantry can hang, and people are essentially fairing that in.
Yep.
But there is a rule written, there has to be a certain gap, but unless there's certain fasteners, and it can't be a true extension, and it can't be buoyant. Like there's a whole deal of complications.
From memory, that rule's 6.1.3 from memory.
Oh, just from memory.
Yeah. Clause D, I believe.
Over A times X squared. Equals B.
But for those interested, check it out. I think it's the International Moth Class page.
Yep, International Moth Sailing is what it is.
Moth Sailing.
Yep. Discussion on the 25th of June. There's a bit of a throwdown from memory.
And reality is it's probably a bit early in the discussion. There's only at least 492 comments so far. I haven't read through them all, I must admit. But, yeah.
Here at Bark Radio, we don't really get interested until it's about 5,000.
But
so we'll stand by on that one.
I'll tell you what, this is an invite from both sides. Just send us an email, cheers@barkarati.com.
Yeah.
And give us your side of the fence.
Yeah.
And we're more than happy to show both sides.
Which is what we want from all of these things.
Where do you sit? Where are you sitting on this one, Jordan?
Probably get rid of it. It's just as easy to get rid of because it does look like it's an extension. There you go. Simple. Decided. What do you guys think?
Well, I've never. I haven't sailed one with one, so I don't know the difference. Mind you, my sailing without one was really limited anyway. So,
yeah,
I tend to agree in the set.
It's just simple.
If it's an aero game, there's more places to get an aero game, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But that would lead to another question: are pros destroying boats?
What? Because they're pushing.
Out of work pros, just so meticulous on everything that pushing
job creation. You reckon?
Well, not necessarily job creation, and it's certainly not their fault, but are not out of work pros, but just being so meticulous with everything.
Well,
blowing these classes out of the water.
Well, in the moth class, because the future is falling for all these sort of, like all these guys are making their money from America's Cup, which is falling, which is Sail GP, which is falling. You got the Persico 69 thing that's all falling. All the things that are coming up now, you need to prove your brand. And you prove your brand, used to be the fin class, to go offshore and all that stuff. Now it's proving your brand in the moth class.
Yep.
And I mean, just look at the Italian national champs. They just had where Goobs won, Ian Jensen won, ahead of Slingsby by a point. Then you had Francesco Bruni, who was
in third.
the skipper of the Italian America's Cup boat. Paul Goodison next in fourth, Olympic gold medalist, and Rogerio Tita, who's the Italian. He's the skipper of the NACRA 17 for the Olympics coming up. So it's phenomenal talent. And that's just the Italian national championships. It's on Lake Garda, I guess, and you know
So I guess actually it's essentially the sport has moved on, and there are certain elements of the sport which have become professional, and this is one element of the sport. Like back in the day, in the 70s, we'd be building our own boats and we're going down the yacht club, we're sailing every Saturday, and we all went to jobs or uni or dropped out of school, whatever it was. But speaking for myself.
What, went to uni?
Negative. But now it is, as you say, Jordan, and very good point, you've got to prove your brand. And this is one of the classes to prove your brand.
Yeah.
So you cannot afford to not do it properly.
Yeah.
Yep. And take advantage of whatever limit there is to reach to.
Well, the other thing I guess they're debating now is whether the worlds are going to be the worlds with the moths as well.
Oh, here we go, down this old path.
Well, no, it's because of COVID. Like, not everyone can get there.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's
Oh, COVID. Don't mention
so not everyone can get there. Should it still be called the world? Some saying yes, some saying no, blah, blah, blah.
No,
So there's
don't
plenty
worry, world sailing, we're rolling on that, no problem. All right, play the music. Next one. Next topic.
Okay. Well, with all the pros being, all the foiling boats being on Lake Garda, of course, this week is
Is
foiling
one of our
week.
favourites.
One of our favourites. So episode 8, Luca Rizzotti, who is the president of Foiling Week, or the man behind it, he was on the episode. And so we've been behind these guys. And it's on again this week. It starts up. So if you are anywhere near Lake Garda, rush on down. They've got quite a bit going on, boys.
Absolutely.
So there's racing in the Wasps, in the Moths, in the ETF 26, and in the wing foils. What else? They've got
69Fs will be there.
69F,
obviously.
Yep. They've got forums, so you'll be able to have a bit of a chat to a bunch of the legends or listen to them talk. A whole bunch of different initiatives going on and trials where you can go out and trial a few boats. So, I mean, it's fantastic.
Basically, if you're in the neighbourhood, get on down there.
Head on down.
Yeah.
Head on down. So, Foiling Week this week on Lake Garda. So, if you're listening to the show right now, away you go. Cool. Any discussion further on that, or are we good?
No, good.
Play
Love
the
it.
music. Play the music.
No. Next topic.
What is the next topic?
The next topic is, this is an interesting one, lads. I find this really, really interesting. The Professional Windsurfing Association, the PWA, they have gone in a new direction this year with their slalom event. Have you guys watched any of this or caught any of this?
No.
I watched the highlights, not the actual what's going on behind the scenes.
So what they've done is in the slalom, you can race with a normal fin or you can race with a foiling fin, and you can swap at any time as you want, right? So it's the same. So you can be on the course with somebody with a normal fin, whereas somebody else can be on a foiling fin. And so I think it was in Israel. I'm trying to remember where it was, but they just had a regatta. And what the debate was going into it was that everyone would just be, if it was lighter winds, get up onto the foil, and if it was really windy, they would go the standard fins, which is what basically happened. And there's some pretty cool footage coming from that, except for 2 of the competitors didn't swap off onto normal fins and stayed on the foiling ones. One of them being Nicolas Goyard, who's a French sailor, and he was a world champion in the foiling board foiling event that's sort of around now. But I don't know, did you guys see any of this footage?
No.
So basically, it was super windy, 25, 30 knots, right? And so everyone had swapped back onto their fins and he hadn't. And so they come off the start and they're sort of probably pacing about equal. And Nicholas was in the first few guys coming into the mark, but he was about fourth or third. And they've all gone around the mark and jibed. And he jibes and cuts inside everyone, rolls the sail over and is gone. Absolutely gone, because he didn't slow down through the jibe, whereas they all sort of had to accelerate again, and that was it, just gone. And he won every race, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so winner of the latest PWA event, and it's the big crossover, the first real crossover of how the falling game's going to play out. So I found that quite interesting. Good to watch. You got to see that jibe. He just came smoking around, and it was just surreal watching the speed difference. And I thought, you'd think it was, you don't think of that during the manoeuvre. That's where you're making your gains. But with the falling, maybe that's where it is, Obviously lower drag.
Well, obviously they're all going to be falling from next event in heavy air, right? They're not going to put up with that.
Well, the other bloke I think he got 12th or 15th or something. So it doesn't work out for everyone. But this Nicola he's on form with these falling boards. So I found it quite interesting. Thought you boys might find it quite interesting as well.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, very cool. So PWA still going on. And our last bit of information for the show, for the evening, Nick Bice, there's a huge press conference coming up this week. Could it be more important? What's going on?
There's probably nothing more important than 10:30 a.m. Paris time on Tuesday, the press conference for the Ocean Globe race.
Remind us what that is again.
May or may not be on the podcast next week. That way.
You're off to France.
So just as a reminder what the Ocean Globe race is, we interviewed episode 44, I believe, interviewed Don McIntyre about the Ocean Globe race, which is essentially a celebration of the 50-year anniversary of the Whitbread.
Yep.
And it's done in the retro style of back in those days. And remember our jokes at the time?
Yeah.
I have to wear the Marlin wet weather gear.
Yeah, the sou'westers.
Sort of stuff, the sou'westers and all that sort of stuff. Well, apparently that's not quite the case. But they're not allowed to take their iPods.
Only tape players.
We even have an iPod these days. Their iPhones. But listen on cassettes and take their guitars. It's about the adventure, the human endeavour. And the race is sold out, gents.
Sold out straight away.
It's sold out.
It's interesting. Wow. I find that really interesting. The sense of adventure is dragging people out.
Yeah, and just the level to enter is a big part of it as well.
Yep.
And basically, if you had a boat which could qualify for the race from 73 through to the 90s, you can do the race. Or, in this case, go on the waiting list.
So back in the era when it first started, the rule used to be that you'd tack on a Tuesday. Is that in the sailing instructions this time around?
I'm not just going to give away what's coming up on Tuesday, but I might have a little chat to the race director and see what we can do.
Oh, there we go.
I've heard the race director of this event could be a disaster.
There's a fair chance. His colleagues and mates are absolute idiots. Well, two of them are anyway.
Yeah, well. Does he need any advice? Because we're good at that. Just ask him when you see him.
Yeah. Will do.
No, that's exciting. So, look, I'm a big fan of this event. I think it's the traditional course. As you said, lots of people doing it for the spirit of adventure. It's good sailing, going and doing, people getting out there. And that's what this show's about. So that's what makes me excited about this event. People getting out there and living and doing sailing.
And what makes me excited is it's actually accessible.
Yeah.
Like I've run into two guys just here in Adelaide who are like, how can we do this? How can we make this happen? And there's not many other around the world events that can do that. So
I love it. That's cool.
Well,
mate, gentlemen, an absolute cracker show, just if we're going to talk ourselves up. But I really enjoyed listening to Mike. I really, really did. and some good stuff going on. So it was great hanging out with you blokes again, as per usual.
Wonderful.
Some big names coming up the next few weeks.
Yes, huge. Holy God, we've got some stuff going on, haven't we?
Who was I?
How are we going to slow this
quickly
down?
before we shut it down? I was saying to someone, do you run out of ideas and people to have on? And it's like, mate, the list is endless. I must admit, early on, I'm like, how on earth will we get 112 people to come on the show? But we have a list as long as our arm for the coming weeks, which is, and we're talking quality as well. So stand by.
Yeah,
it's bloody good.
Yeah, I don't have to go far to get some of the best in the world, do I, right now?
Just knocking on your door almost. You should have got some of those Kiwi Olympians around helping you smash up your backyard the other day.
Yeah, they went past and waved. They waved. They didn't volunteer to come and help. Oh, dear. All right.
Oh, there you go.
Blokes, next week. Good work. Good luck with the press conference on Tuesday. Hope the actual things turn out great for everyone. And, it's been an absolute cracker.
Just get my guitar. Hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Tune it up.
Yeah, no, I tuned it up earlier. Right, hit it. Let's go. Ready, boys?
He's done it again.
Right into the slide. You're a bit frenzied here, BP. This is the best bit.
Love that bit.
Like that. Kind of like a railroad blues. All that bit. Like we'll chuck it.
Yes.